Get out of here, Ma. Far away. Caleb's words cut like a blade and hung over my porch in the desert's blistering noon. He held out a check for $15,000, staring past me at the red cliffs beyond the Pecos, as if the answer to why he'd so easily transferred, behind my back, my ranch appraised at $4 million was shimmering out there in the New Mexico heat. My eldest, the boy I'd taught to throw a lariat and count calves before he could read, was telling me to leave my own home like I was some random lodger. He didn't know that I knew. Had known for a week. And that I'd already set things in motion that would take his breath away. 15,000? I squinted and pulled on a smile he mistook for surrender. That's my share after 40 years carving this place out of rock? Caleb shrugged like we were talking about an old, sun-bleached tank you scrap behind a barn. Ma, you're too old to haul a spread this size. I moved the property for $4 million. Put the funds into a venture that'll double our income. That, he tapped the papers where my signature sat, is your comfortable start someplace closer to a hospital. He didn't know that a week earlier Reed, my younger one, had come by after dark, pale and shaken, angrier than I'd ever seen him. Ma, I overheard Caleb. He was talking to a lawyer. They're going to falsify your signature and offload the ranch. Says there's already an acquirer, and you're too stubborn to notice. Reed risked his standing with his brother to save my life, because this ranch was my life. I'd rolled into Santa Fe County with 2 babies in the back seat of an old pickup and $100 in the glove box. I milked goats and cows before dawn, shouldered feed sacks, planted a pecan orchard row by row until the wind split my skin. Every fence post nail was my callus and my grit. And now some paperwork pretended to erase me along with the land. Caleb had always been different from Reed. As a kid he'd ask how much capital we had, when the ranch would officially be his. He'd sleep till noon while I pulled irrigation hose in the dark. I paid his college, his car, his wedding, and later, oddball startups that flared and went out like paper lanterns over the Rio Grande. I kept believing he'd finally see it. But the man across from me now saw only an obstacle blocking his inheritance. You're 67, he added, sliding the doctored papers into a pricey briefcase. Take the money, rent a place with an elevator and a concierge in Albuquerque. This is done. The acquirer paid. I invested. No road back. I stood. My back creaked, not from age, from something inside standing up. Caleb figured he'd won. He didn't hear the scorched little gear click in my head that tells you to act. Because all week, while he was calling friends and, Lord help us, probably booking tables in Santa Fe hot spots, I'd been in the office of Dr. Ivy Caldwell, an attorney who never treated me like a poor old lady, but like a landowner with 4 decades of hard lessons. Fine, Caleb, I said, soft and even. I accept your offer. But let's have one last supper, like family. He broke into a winner's grin. High Mesa Grill. 8 o'clock. You'll love their filet mignon, Ma. He had no idea that's where his world would come apart. That night I drifted from room to room, fingertips on worn photo frames, Reed with his first horned heifer, little Caleb with a shepherd's whistle, me in speckled gloves, laughing into an autumn downpour. At daybreak I called Ivy. Maggie, her voice is always steady, but this time there was a metallic quickness in it. Come now. We've got news. The road into town stretched like a banjo string. I remembered the first time I met Ivy, 3 years back, when Caleb started pressing me to retitle the ranch to him for efficient asset management. Ivy didn't chuckle at my distrust. She said it plain, in this country, elder financial abuse isn't folklore, it's statistics. Trust isn't a gift, it's a contract. Now she set a heavy folder in front of me. The signatures on those papers are falsified, she said, but he already filed them at the county recorder. In the system, a buyer shows as owner. Last Monday, when you came in shaken by Reed's tip, we established an irrevocable trust. You are the lifetime beneficiary and trustee. Any transfer without your consent is void. Tears hit my cheeks, not from weakness, but relief. And Ivy tapped her laptop. The in-home discrete cameras did their job. We have yesterday's check handoff in perfect quality. Same for his calls with a partner. Partner? I blinked. Who? Victor Aragon. The name on the papers. There is no such person with that identity on record. But there is an account in a San Antonio bank in Caleb's name. The scheme's simple. Victor purchases at an inflated price. The difference comes back in cash, the rest goes into shadow investments. And when no real title can be obtained, Victor vanishes, leaving you landless and Caleb with an investment story. I wanted to step into the blasting sun and yell at the sky. I just breathed deep. Then dinner is tonight, I said. Let him bring his fancy wine. I chose the red dress I'd bought at 60, the day I planted the last pecan row, and told myself, you did it, Maggie Kincaid. I clipped my hair with Jack's turquoise pin and put on pearls. At 6 sharp, Ivy's car rolled through my gate. Ready? She smiled with that strange mix of kindness and steel. More than. High Mesa Grill, with sunsets burning in its windows, was full of tourists and locals in suede hats. Caleb waited by the glass, and when he stood to kiss my cheek he smelled of expensive cologne and victory. You look amazing, Ma, he said, sliding out my chair. I want tonight to be special. It will be, I said. He ordered the best Chardonnay. Raised his glass. To your new chapter. Ease and peace. I touched the rim and barely kept from laughing. The show was just starting. There's one more thing, Caleb said, fanning his documents. The acquirer wants access next week. Need you packed by Friday. Next week? I put a little shock in my voice. I thought I'd at least say goodbye to every tree. Ma, he sighed, indulgent, don't dramatize. I found a nice place in Albuquerque. Security, elevator, hospital nearby. He spoke like he was placing me in assisted living with a view of the parking lot. And, he took another sip, you understand why you signed, he tapped the fake signature, last month at my place. You said the responsibility was too heavy. I don't remember, I said evenly. Because it didn't happen. His eyes sharpened like a bone knife. Ma, your memory's slipping. I'm trying to help. A warm hand touched my shoulder. Good evening, Mrs. Kincaid, came Ivy's steady voice. Mind if I join you? Caleb went chalk white. Who is this? Dr. Ivy Caldwell, she said. Trusts and elder protection attorney. Your mother is my client. We have things to discuss. This is a family matter, Caleb managed. And everything's legal. Ivy placed her folder on the table. Legal? Great. Explain why this signature doesn't match any authentic signature of your mother's in 40 years. And how it happened that the acquirer, Victor Aragon, wired a deposit to an account where you're the sole beneficiary. He grabbed the pages, his fingers shook. A mistake. The accountant mixed it up. Ma signed, I was. Right here? Ivy slid out a still from a security cam. Caleb in his office, his own witness, his own notary. He flinched. And, Ivy went on, we recorded your calls with the partner. The Victor Aragon identity is a shell, a nominal ID tied to your phone. Real title transfer won't happen because last week Mrs. Kincaid placed the ranch into an irrevocable trust. She's the lifetime beneficiary. Any subsequent transfer is void. The world narrowed to our table. Somewhere knives clinked, glasses chimed, and sweat beaded at Caleb's temples. Ma, he finally looked at me. It's a misunderstanding. I did this for the family. You don't understand finance. Then explain the Frontier Nexus Innovation Fund. Ivy leaned in, calm as a surgeon. You supposedly sent the $4 million there. No registration in Delaware, Nevada, or federal rolls. There is, however, a wallet on a Select exchange and a JM Holdings account offshore. Where's the money, Mr. Kincaid? He sagged. I put it into crypto. A consultant said it was a chance. Luma Coin, Galaxy Token, a few others. After beta, the prices were going to pop. Ivy shut her eyes a beat. Those are notorious scam tokens. How much remains? 300,000, give or take. His voice rasped like a truck had run over it. Right then Reed walked up. He stood straight, composed, but his eyes carried hurt. Sorry to crash, he told his brother. The bank already froze your accounts. They called regulators themselves. Caleb looked at him like he was a stranger. You're against me too. I'm for Ma, Reed said quietly. Always was. Still am. The server hovered at the edge of our storm. I smiled at him. We're just having a small conversation about honor. Caleb covered his face. Ma, I'm sorry. I wanted to prove I'm more than cows and fields. That I'm your successor for real. I can make it right. Give me time. Where are the funds? Ivy asked, dry as dust. Specifically. I told you, exchange, the fund, some offshore. I can withdraw in a few days. You won't, Ivy tapped the folder. Regulators flagged every transfer. There'll be an investigation. And charges, falsification, a scheme, financial abuse of an elder. He went paper white. Will I go to jail? That depends on cooperation, she said evenly. And on your mother's decision about a civil action. All eyes turned to me. Maggie Kincaid, who makes decisions in hail and wind and drought, had to make the hardest one yet. Listen close, I said, surprised at the iron in my own voice. You're going to answer for what you did. But I'm not out to break you past repair, so long as there's a flicker of conscience left in you. Here are my terms. I raised a finger for each. You wire back everything left, 300,000, now. You sell your house and car, every cent to restitution. You move to the ranch, but not into my home, the seasonal hands cabin. Up at 5. You work unpaid 12 months, until Ivy says you've restored what you can in good faith. No investments, no loans, no genius plans without written approval from the Trust's Oversight Board. Monthly reports to me and to Ivy. Break one term, 1, I file a full civil action and prune you out of my life like a diseased limb. Caleb swallowed. I accept. I'll do it. This isn't reconciliation, I added. It's supervised amends. Reed set a hand on his brother's shoulder. I'll help you not backslide. But the work is yours. Ivy was already pulling a pen. Tomorrow, my office. We sign. And one more thing, you'll testify against the consultants who bled you. Understood? Yes. The dining room thinned out. We stepped into the crosswind that smelled of dust and a coming monsoon. I stopped at the steps. 5 a.m., Caleb, I said. Don't be late. This is a ranch, not a startup. The first week broke his body. The second broke his pride. By the third he'd stopped counting blisters and learned to hear the pumps hum from a bad bearing. He didn't complain. He hauled sacks, spliced wire, changed filters on the pivots, pruned pecans, not like a boss's son, but like a man who couldn't bear to meet his mother's eye. Every dawn. Morning, Ma. What's on deck? And I laid out the list the same way I used to for the harvest cruise. Ivy kept a hand on the pulse, accounts, receipts, closings on the house and SUV. We clawed back 550,000. Nothing next to 4 million, but like rain after a long dry spell, it was a start. Ma, he asked one day as we checked the north orchard, do you think you'll ever forgive me? Forgiveness isn't a prize, I said, snipping a dead limb. It's a road. You walk it slow. With deeds, not speeches. That same day Reed came out. The brothers sat by the catch pond on the slope and said almost nothing for a long time. Evenings, Caleb disappeared into the bunkhouse with farm manuals, and for the first time in a year my house was quiet. 3 months passed. Then 6. Then 9. Winter brought slicing north winds, spring, dust storms, summer, new saplings. Caleb changed, eyes, hands, gait. A different humility crept into his voice, not groveling, but sober. "You know," he said, tacking new markers to the corner posts, "I always thought money was just numbers. Turns out it's someone's sweat, someone's sleepless night, elbows torn on barbed wire. I've been a fool." "Good that you said it," I answered. On Sundays he'd sit under a pecan with books on livestock and irrigation design. No one made him. "Ma," he asked one evening, wiping his hands, "they want me to testify on Frontier Nexus." "I'll go. I'll tell everything." "That's right," I said. "Not just you paying, those pulling the strings too." Exactly 1 year after that dinner, Ivy pulled up for the final review. "Maggie," she smiled, leafing through, "in 20 years of practice, I've rarely seen a turnaround like this." Caleb met every term. Returned $800,000. Worked 12 months unpaid. Completed financial literacy therapy. Gave testimony that helped arrest 3 organizers of the scam. She looked over her glasses. "The choice is yours." I called Caleb in from the yard. He came in sun-browned, weather-carved, with calluses no glove can hide, and eyes that finally held quiet. "A year ago you betrayed me as a man and as a son," I said plain. "This year you've been earning yourself back, with a shovel, a wrench, and truthful words. I'm not handing you inheritance. I'm offering a job and a shot. Officially. Junior partner. A real paycheck. Operational say. No major money moves without my signature and Ivy's oversight for 3 more years." I made myself hold his eyes. Full trust doesn't arrive with a contract. It grows like a pecan, slow, deep. "Ma," he took a half step back like the light hit him hard. "I don't deserve it. But I'll accept it. And I'll prove it." We called Reed. He drove over, hugged us both, and for the first time in a long time didn't look like the ground might drop away. That evening we sat on the porch with cold lemonade, watching the sun drop like a hot coin into the canyon. Breathing felt possible again. I rose to kill the pantry light when the gate lock clicked. A stranger in a worn leather jacket walked in, like the desert wind had led him. Hat with a snakeskin band, a hand carrying a stamped envelope. He doffed the brim, looked up at me, and smiled like we were old friends. "Mrs. Kincaid?" Soft voice, sure, with a South Border lilt. "Name's Victor Aragon." He let the pause hang, thick as resin. Time to talk about what actually got bought with those $4 million. Caleb shot to his feet. Reed set down his glass hard. Ivy, just coming out with papers, froze in the doorway. The dirt didn't shift under my boots, no. It felt denser, about to spring me forward. "I thought you didn't exist," I said, tucking my pearls back under my collar. "Or that you were just borrowed ink on dirty forms." "Yes and no," he dipped his head and handed me the envelope. "You'll want to sit. It's not just papers. It's subsurface maps and an old, very old easement your husband signed 39 years back. You didn't sell the ranch, Mrs. Kincaid, you sold access. And sometimes access is worth more than land." The wind lifted warm dust off the gravel, the dog growled in the barn's shadow, and the desert's liver clicked faintly, like a safety coming off. We traded looks, me, my sons, and Ivy, and I felt that same gear rise in me as on the porch the day Caleb slid me that check. No one, no sham contract, no ghost from the past, was going to take what I built with my own hands. But I knew this now too, stories don't end where someone slaps a check down and doctors a signature. They begin, with a truth that smells like dust, pecan sap, and hot metal at desert dusk. "All right, Mr. Aragon," I said, waving him to the table where we decide family business and the future of our ground. "Sit. Tell us everything." Then it's my turn. He nudged the envelope closer. The stamp, another county, Guadalupe, and a note, county recorder. Mineral rights. Easement 38R. I met Ivy's eyes. Plans and statutes were already forming there. Read quietly, firmly offered Caleb his hand, not as a lifeline now, but as a partner's grip. And I, Maggie Kincaid, widow, farmer, mother, trust beneficiary, owner of every nail on this perimeter, felt what I've felt for 40 years opening the gate at first light, work ahead. And that's what I live for. We're listening, I said. And fair warning, this time there's more than wine on the table. There's the law. Victor Aragon smiled like he'd been waiting on that line. Then let's roll. And the desert, which always keeps its own counsel, seemed to lean in. Victor didn't sit like a guest. He sat like a man long prepared to speak an uncomfortable truth. He spread yellowed copies, fresh satellite images, a map of the aquifer, and a sheet with another county's seal. 39 years ago your husband signed an easement, he said evenly. Not for land. For access, a pipeline and a well, with rights to draw subsurface water and mineral salts in the upper layer. Back then it looked like helping a small co-op in drought. Now, he tapped the map, it's the key to lithium-bearing brines under your basin. And water. The target is water. Ivy was already scribbling. Easement number? 38R, re-recorded in Guadalupe 3 years ago to Blue Coyote Resources, LLC. And, he looked up, the Victor Aragon name used in your son's sham deal? That's my real name. They hired me as an independent auditor for access rights. Someone inside leaked my name into their setup so if it blew up, I'd look like the culprit. I came to warn you. And, to relay an offer. Not mine, theirs. $1 million for quiet if you don't interfere. After that, they take the water. Caleb's fists went white. They won't. We'll lock gates, hire guards, whatever it takes. It's not locks, Ivy cut in, eyes still on the pages. Water is law and policy. If they have an easement and waive public benefit, they'll go through the county board and court for compelled use. I need the original instrument, the fine print. Maggie? If Jack signed something, I said, he'd have left me a copy. Anything important was either in the steel tool chest or the old inventory safe in the pantry. I've never seen this. They could have re-recorded without fresh notice, Ivy said. We search. Tonight. Victor slid over another map. Here's their rush. A private fund out of Austin already filed to reroute water for municipal needs in Rio Vista. They'll hide behind public good. You've got 5 days until the board hearing. 5? Reed stood. Can we make that? If we find the original, we file to quiet title and for a temporary restraining order, Ivy said. If not, we hit them elsewhere, environmental review, pasture impact, NEPA issues, no aquifer impact assessment. But the original is your trump. And one more thing, Victor said quieter. Someone's been walking your lines at night. Their contractors set survey markers twice. Your sheriff, how to say this gently, plays golf with Blue Coyote. Keep your eyes open. He rose like he had no more reason to linger. I'll be back in 2 days, with an answer. Meanwhile, his glance flicked to Caleb, keep your brother close. What happened in that restaurant, they'll try to weaponize it. We turned the house upside down. Tool chest, pantry safe, old tax boxes, no, 38R. Near midnight I sank to the floor in Jack's office, back against his old desk. My fingers found a rough split under the top. I pushed, a thin slat gave. Inside, a narrow cavity and a metal tube with a plug. Got it. I called. Ivy slid it out, spun the cap. Inside, documents tied with string and a note in Jack's hand. Meg, if you're reading this, water turned into someone else's currency again. I made a mistake. Helping felt right at the time. But I wrote one line, our safety valve. She unrolled the easement. Buried in the standard clauses and seals, in tiny cursive, a sentence. This easement pauses if the aquifer level drops more than 12 feet within 24 months of commencement, or if withdrawals impair herd keeping on more than 20% of agreed pastures. And at the bottom, in Jack's hand, and if Maggie says no. That last note isn't notarized, Ivy murmured, though a smile tugged at her mouth. But the drop clause is gold. We need baseline measurements from 40 years ago and current data. Pull from state records, ask for a restraining order. And, perimeter security. Reed? I'll put up cameras and launch a night drone, he said. If the friendly sheriff goes blind, we won't. Caleb sat in lamplight clutching Jack's letter like he wanted to memorize every stroke. Dad, he whispered, barely audible. Next evening Reed led us to the north line. In the moonlight, fresh wooden stakes with red streamers glowed. Beyond the ridge a pickup spotlight flickered. We came closer and saw two men in vests offloading plastic crates. Private land, Reed called. Pull the stakes and move along. We've got authorization, the older one said, slow and deliberate, waving a paper. Survey, cleared with the county. Cleared with who? Ivy stepped up, phone lighting her bar card. Any inspection on private property requires owner consent. Right now, you're trespassing. And you're on video. The younger tugged the older's sleeve. Let's go, Larry. We'll be back, the older muttered, spitting at the dirt. You're not forever. When their lights disappeared, Caleb bent to lift a stake. Something metal winked near its base. Drone? Reed crouched. Dropped on takeoff. Scuffed, but alive. Careful, Ivy said. That's evidence. Back home Reed popped the card and fed it to the laptop. Frames rolled, thermal blobs of cows, fence lines, date stamps, a contractor logo, Sage and Spur surveying, and then something that dried my mouth. A blurred blue coyote emblem on the side of a tanker, already staged a mile down the highway. They weren't waiting for hearings. They were rolling. Judge first thing, Ivy said. Temporary order and motion to preserve evidence. And the public aquifer logs show a more than 12-foot drop these past 2 years. If we tie it to their pilot pulls off-site, the easement stalls automatically. I'm going with you, Caleb said. I'll swear they offered $1 million for quiet. And that they used Victor's name in a sham. That helps, Ivy nodded. But keep it tight. They'll try to paint you as unreliable. I'll hold. The hearing blew through like summer thunder. Judge Hopkins, a woman with ice-clear eyes and a clipped gray cut, read our motions faster than I could breathe. Tiro granted in part, she struck the gavel. Blue Coyote, no activities on the Kincaid Ranch pending review. County access to Boundary Road permitted. Respondent? We'll hear you Friday. The sheriff waited in the hall, shoulders on the wall, arms folded. You're making this hard, Maggie. Could have kept it quiet. Town needs water. Town can find water lawfully, I said. Not by siphoning other folks' veins. We'll see who's other folks, he tossed over his shoulder and walked to the elevator. That evening Victor returned, tired, missing that chill certainty, and his hat. They changed the play, he said at the door. Blue Coyote just partnered with Rio Vista Water Improvement District, a quasi-public shell. Through them they'll try for a forced easement as community infrastructure. They won't, Ivy said. We've got the drop clause. And a Tiro. I brought what they fear most. Victor pulled a slim hard drive from his jacket. Blue Coyote leadership email for the last 3 months. I copied it while they still thought I was their compliant auditor. Pump plans, kickback amounts, names. Including your sheriff. You done with them? Reed asked, wary. They're done with me. When I refuse to sign an environmental no-impact letter. I'm either your witness or their enemy. And they don't like enemies. Good, Ivy said. But if this is fake, you drown us all. There's enough truth on it to drown everyone, he answered quietly. So we move fast. The night before Friday was still as glass. The dog growled at nothing. The air congealed. I walked toward the barn and smelled smoke. Not kitchen smoke. Field. Fire. I yelled. Flames ran the downwind strip of dry grass along the east fence, lunged toward the pecans, grabbed leaves. In a minute we had hoses unrolled, pump roaring, Reed and Caleb moving like a single machine, water, sand, cut off. An engine revved out in the dark and choked. 2 hours later we'd beaten the edge into a muddy line. I sank to the ground and felt my temples throb. Set, Caleb said, pointing to a gas can tossed in the brush. Somebody wanted us away from the north line. Or wanted the camera posts gone, Reed added. Didn't work. Cops came at first light. Not the sheriff, another deputy. He wrote quiet notes, tagged the can. Ivy stood aside, talking in clean, chopped sentences on her phone. This helps us, she said when she clicked off. Pressure before a hearing. I'll file for witness protection and ask the state AG in. We'll prove it, I said. But first, stand up in court. Court buzzed like a hive when we walked in. First row, badges reading Rio Vista Water Improvement District. Behind them, 2 men in those smooth suits with faces trained not to blink. The sheriff sat to the side like a passerby. Judge Hopkins entered, the noise dropped dead. Ivy led hard, easement condition, aquifer drop, drone stills, the suspicious blaze, existence of Blue Coyote email, no details, she offered it in camera to prosecutors. The other side pounded, public benefit, city needs, prior obligations under easement. Counsel, the judge cut him off, even if the easement stands, a 12-foot drop is a condition. Did you violate it? No proven link between our operations and the drop, he smiled. General drought. And withdrawals from control test wells off the property? Ivy snapped. We have charts. You'll prove that's not yours? We, for the first time he stumbled, will provide an expert report. In 30 days. 30? The judge arched an eyebrow. Well, you've got tankers staged a mile from their gate? No. Tiro continues. No work. No entry. As for public benefit, she brought the gavel down. This court requires an independent environmental impact study before any motion for compelled easement is even docketed. The room surged like surf. Rio Vista folks murmured, the sheriff clenched his jaw. I took my first easy breath in a week. On our way out, one of the smooth suits handed me a card. Mrs. Kincaid, he said evenly, you won a preliminary round. Water's not a quick case, it's a marathon. I represent Blue Coyote Capital. We'll be back. Come with clean hands, I said. And respect for other folks' ground. He almost smiled. Ground is surface. We're interested in what's under it. Then dig yourself a hole and move in, Reed muttered, and for the first time that day I laughed out loud. We didn't celebrate that night. Relief at the order wrestled with the sense that the game had just moved levels. Victor sat on the concrete step and watched a square of sky through the branches. You know Jack? I asked. Saw him once, he said. You were with him at the Las Vegas fair, selling saddles. He laughed when he bargained for straps. Said the right price is the one your conscience can live with. I remembered. He paused. I'm not a saint, Mrs. Kincaid. I came to save my own hide too. But maybe for the first time I'm saving it the right way. We'll see, I said. Right takes endurance, same as anything worth it. Near midnight the dog clicked his teeth at the dark again, but no one came. The wind eased, and even the desert felt almost gentle. I just dozed in the porch chair when a text lit my phone from an unknown number. One line, check the east edge of the pecan grove. Under the flat stone by the third post. No name. "Read, Caleb," I called, "saddle up." Headlights combed the rows. Under the third post's flat rock lay a bag, inside, a thumb drive and a scrap sketching our boundary, a cluster of wells, and an arrow toward the old dry wash. "What kind of game is this?" Caleb said. "Someone inside," Reed answered. "Or Victor hedging. Or someone trying to pin it on him." Back on the porch we plugged the drive in. Boardroom video. The same sterile conference room, the same don't blink faces. And a line you couldn't mishear: if the judge grants them the order, we activate Plan B, trigger easement 38 are through, the other agreement. It's older. No one's seen it. We'll pull it from the old recorder's archive. Title is J. M. Kincaid Trust. Cold slid down my spine. J. M. isn't Jack, I said. He doesn't have a middle name. I stopped, remembering my father-in-law's old letter. John Matthew Kincaid. Jack's dad. Old Texas bank account. I pushed up so fast my chair toppled. Ivy. They're digging deeper than we thought. If there's an older trust, it could carry some hidden, emergency right. If they can waive that, they'll claim a successor right of entry, Ivy finished over speaker. Which means we need one of two things, either that document, and we shred it in court on conditions, or, she inhaled, or a person who can attest the trust was, in practice, closed. Who? The one who closed it. Or, Ivy paused like she hated to say a name, Jack's godfather. Former Guadalupe County notary. I've seen his signature on another case. Disappeared 20 years back. Rumor says Montana. How do we find him? Reed asked. We start with old directories, she said. I'll take that. You, her voice hardened, keep the perimeter tight and don't bite at provocations. Someone already plays with fires and found things. Next time it might not be a thumb drive. I put the phone down and watched the far highway throw its ribbon of fire. Marathon is marathon. But I can run. And fall. And get up better. The gate lock clicked again. A long shadow fell across the gravel. Trap or chance, either way, I already knew what I'd do. Open it, I told my sons. Whoever it is, we'll hear them out. And then we'll speak. A gray-haired man stepped into the light. Worn denim jacket. A case that had seen 100 bus stations. He took off his hat and breathed the pecan smell like he was verifying the land was real. You Maggie Kincaid, he rasped. Name's Matthew Grant. Former notary, and you could say an old friend of your father-in-law. I reckon I'm the one you're looking for. And I've got something that makes easement 38 are nothing but a scrap of paper. We traded looks. Ivy whispered through the phone. Keep him. Don't let him out of sight. Have a seat, Mr. Grant, I said, a strong, sober calm settling in my chest. There's more than wine on this table. There's the law. And memory. He set down the case, the latches clicked. Then let's roll, he smiled wearily. Because if we don't get this done by Monday, the water goes where it shouldn't. The desert listened again. Matthew Grant spread the papers on my faded tablecloth like they were fragile maps from a gold rush. The J. M. Kincaid Trust was your father-in-law's emergency mechanism, he said. But it terminated 22 years ago. Here are the closing records, my notary logs, and my sworn statement. No successors, no hidden clauses. Whatever Blue Coyote planned to drag from the archive is a phantom. Ivy had waited to hear exactly that. Enough to kill their plan B, she said. We add it to the water case, plus Victor's email trove, and we go to Judge Hopkins for a permanent injunction. By Friday noon the gavel fell 3 times. Permanent injunction. No activities by Blue Coyote within the Kincaid boundary. Materials suggesting collusion with officials are referred to the State Attorney General. The 38R hearing is moot, the aquifer drop condition triggered, the judge said, crisp as a new bill. The sheriff kept his eyes down. Rio Vista reps vanished into the hall noise. Silence fell as fast as the fight had begun. That evening, on the porch between pecan hull and road dust, Caleb stood like he had that first day, only his eyes were different, empty with fatigue, full of regret. "Ma," he began, his voice broke. "Tell me how to make this right." I'd been waiting for that question since Summit Grill. "First," I said, "we finish the water fight. Second, we settle our own. Now, how do you picture rebuilding the trust you tore down?" He took a long time. "If you let me, I'll work the ranch. Not as heir. Not as partner. As a hand. A year. 2. As long as you say. No pay, until I've repaid what I can. I have to become the kind of man you aren't ashamed to call your son. Words are easy when you're scared. Work isn't. Ranch work is 5 a.m., heat, grit, torn nails, and a sore back," I warned. "And no, I know better." "You really agree to that?" "I do," he said without blinking. Ivy, sitting off to the side, opened her notebook. "If we do a rehabilitation agreement, it's under full legal supervision, restitution sum, payment schedule, bunkhouse residency, ban on investments and loans, monthly reporting, immediate termination on breach. Plus the initial $300,000 wired by 10 a.m. tomorrow." "I accept," Caleb said quietly. "One more condition," I added. "No pressuring my decisions about the ranch. This is my land. My word is final." He nodded. "I understand." The restaurant had nearly emptied that night, the waiter gently hinting at closing, but we, like at a swearing-in, finished the terms. At the door, Reed hugged his brother. That hug held all of it, anger, fear, hope. 500, I said in parting. "Don't be late." Next morning he was in the yard at 10 to 5. Week 1 skinned his hands raw. Month 1 taught him to lift with legs, not back, and to listen before talking. He slept in the hands cabin, ate at the long table with everyone else, and learned from the folks he hadn't seen a year before. By 3 months the office boy had vanished under layers of sun and dust. Caleb learned to hear water and soil, tell a panicked heifer's cry from a false alarm, read a pecan by the cast of its leaf. "This tree is yellowing," he pointed one day. "I'd check drainage first, then look for pests. Nudge nitrogen after." "Good," I said, and felt something small shift inside me, careful, slow. Meanwhile Ivy ticked boxes, the initial 300 wired on time, house and car sold, assets converted, total back, 550. Then he worked with prosecutors. His testimony led to the crypto scheme middlemen and 2 fixers for Blue Coyote. The state ran warrants. The sheriff resigned, then posted bond. Sundays Caleb read under a pecan, AG texts, irrigation guides. No one told him to. "Ma," he asked one evening, about forgiveness, "is it possible?" "Forgiveness isn't an event," I said. "It's a process. Every morning you show up, every honest report, every, I will, instead of later, that's a step." He nodded. "I know what I broke. I know rebuilding takes longer." Reed, who'd guarded me from the start, now tossed, dumb, questions at his brother just to see if he'd snap. He didn't. Sometimes he laughed, and kept working. A year passed. The mornings smelled the same, dust and green shell, and different. Clean folders lay on my office desk. Ivy arrived right at noon. "Maggie," she said over the final packet, "in 2 decades I've seldom seen such steady change. Every term met. 800,000 restored. Not a single lapse. I'm ready to close the 1-year oversight and open the next, partnership, with limits we discussed." Caleb gripped his chair like the decision itself was in the wood. "A year ago," I said, "you signed a death sentence on me. Instead of taking everything, I gave you a chance. You worked that chance. My decision, you stay, not as heir by birthright, but as junior partner with real duties, a paycheck, and a voice in operations. Full financial autonomy? No. Next 3 years under oversight. Big steps only through me and Ivy. Trust is a marathon. He looked up, relief and shame mixed in his eyes. Ma. I don't deserve this, but I'll work to. That's how right roads start, I said. Ivy set the new contract down, terms, percentages, guardrails. Caleb signed without haggling. We put Reed on speaker. Well then, he grinned, congrats, junior partner. Tomorrow you run the North Penn's cruise solo. And don't forget the tractor's drifting left, adjust the clutch. Got it, Caleb said, and for the third time that day he smiled with his eyes, not his mouth. That night the porch held all of us, me, my boys, Ivy, Victor, Matthew. Each with our own path, burden, and hook into this land. Victor reported Blue Coyote Resources had rebranded as Mesa Ridge Capital and was slipping out of the county, but the state cases were on rails now, suspicious fires, collusion, schemes. The water stayed ours. You defended more than acres, Matthew said. You defended the right to call a place home. That's a rare win. I looked at my sons. Reed, bruise on his arm and a fool's grin that always asks the right questions. Caleb, hands finally able to grip something heavier than a briefcase, eyes that didn't dart away. One more thing, I turned to the junior partner. Forgiveness is a process, and tonight I'm closer to it than any day since that supper. But don't mistake my kindness for softness. Boundaries remain. They don't get crossed. Ever. I know, he said. And I want you to know, the first day I didn't set an alarm because I woke up on my own, that was the day I realized I finally liked the man I'm working to be. We laughed long and easy. A Texas hill country summer smelled of dust, mint, and smoke from fires long put out. Epilogue. 3 months later the county held a public water hearing. We spoke not as victims but as a side that knows the law. An independent environmental review confirmed the aquifers on the mend. Easement 38 are dead. Mesa Ridge's attempts to slide in through other parcels collapsed after arrests of their friends in offices. Blue Coyote became a warning label, not a threat. Ivy accepted a state appointment to chair an advisory group on legacy easements, so nobody nicks your water with someone else's hands, she said. Victor moved to El Paso, built an independent audit team, and went after other, clean, schemes. Matthew sent a postcard from Montana, remember, the right price is the one your conscience can keep. And we worked. Of course we did, chores, heat, small spats, laughter, new calves, cut branches, a bulky pump, training kids. Caleb led Green Hands the way I used to, not with speeches, with example. Reed fought with drones and sensors until Ivy and I finally okayed that dumb experiment with drip that ended up saving half our water on the South Rose. On the first anniversary of the partnership we hung a photo in the office, not a posed one, a working one, me and my 2 sons, dust to our knees, laughing a laugh we'd not be ashamed to let strangers hear. Ma, Caleb asked again as we walked the far pen at sunset, is forgiveness close? You know, I said, I fall asleep now not with anger, but with curiosity for tomorrow. That's my measure of close. He nodded and tightened wire on a post. His hands were my hands now, same calluses, same memory of motion. A woman who built an enterprise with her own hands defended the water, the home, and the right to set the rules. A son who once wanted to inherit, without working now earns his place, nail by nail, row by row, sunrise by sunrise. You can lose 4 million and find something dearer, character, calling, and the road home. And when the night wind stirs the pecan leaves, I smile, not because everything's perfect, but because for the first time in years, the future is ours.